You are listening to the Build a Brain podcast with Dr. Jeanne Zehr. Join the quest to shape an efficient brain that fires on all cylinders and runs like a fine-tuned machine. You are now in the capable hands of an international presenter and a pathologically optimistic brain builder. Dr. Zehr will give you the right blocks to build that 3 pounds of cerebral muscle for you, your child, or the young adult you teach or mentor. Block by block, thought by thought, now is the time to build a better brain. Let's get started.
Welcome, friends, to episode number 13 of Build a Brain. Block by block, thought by thought, let's build your brain. Or maybe it's a child, or maybe it's someone you mentor. It can be your own brain or other people that you love and you work with. So I'm so happy to have so many friends around the world join me on this adventure called the Build a Brain podcast. So Kibwe has got us all set up and ready to go for number 13. It's all about sensing space. Where are you in space? So you probably remember when you were a little kid and you figured out your left hand from your right hand. Well, some of us didn't figure that out until we were an adult, okay? And just so you know, this is a really big deal for someone who doesn't do it well. So you know who you are out there. You know that you maybe have someone in your family that you depend upon to do all the navigating. So if you're going to go somewhere, we used to use these old-fashioned things called maps. Do you remember those? They were made out of paper and they were in books like called maybe an atlas, a road atlas. You remember those old things? You'd open them up and figure out where you were going. Well, I highly recommend you still keep a road atlas around so that you can have an idea of where you are. My husband, Rick, and I took a trip down to Kentucky and we didn't have a road atlas. And I remember going, well, where am I? Somewhere west of Lexington? It was so vague when all you're doing is looking at your GPS and the little car on the screen, whether you're using Google Maps, we like Waze, or some other app that's just telling you turn left here, turn right here. Well, that's okay. But when we become totally dependent upon technology, we are not giving our brain the opportunity to develop this cognitive function that Feuerstein identified. It's underneath input. It's the fourth one in input. It just happens to be the 13th one in our sequence of podcast episodes. But knowing where you are in space, having an idea of my left from my right, and you want to get that internalized. If you're still doing this, putting up your fingers and figuring out which is my left and which is my right, or you have to think, oh, wait, I write with my right hand. We've all done those tricks. But let me tell you, you want that internalized in your brain. You don't want to have to use an external cue. For those of you that internalize that easily by the time you were 7 or 8 years old, you have no idea what I'm talking about. The rest of you who are like me, I still will give someone directions and I'll say, yeah, when you get to that corner, you'll turn right. And then later I'll realize I told them wrong. They should have turned left. So I still kind of mix up my left and right. But my husband will tell you that since Feuerstein, I am so much better. There's nothing, almost nothing. It's just a really, really awkward, horrible feeling to be lost, to not know where you're at. When I was a child, I was maybe 6 years old, we stop at this rest stop on our way to the Toledo Zoo, and there's a big woods, and everybody's going to the restroom and getting drinks, and I see a path in the woods, and I'm like, well, I'm going to go explore, of course. So I go running down this path, and I took a couple turns, and suddenly I realized I was lost. And I did not know how to get back. and I'm wandering around in this very big woods forest for I don't know how long. I have no idea how long I was lost. Maybe 20 minutes, not forever. And my family was out looking for me, and I'll never forget that sense of being found and not being lost anymore. And I think because of that experience, teeny tiny bit of PTSD, that to this day, if I'm somewhere that I don't know how to get out of a mall or some parking lot, or the hospitals, you go to visit someone in the hospital and you can't find your way down the hallway, or I'm driving somewhere and I realize I missed my turn, where am I? I don't like that feeling of where am I? I feel lost. Well, that really bridges over to life if you don't have direction in your life either. That sense of feeling lost is not fun. So this looks like a very foundational cognitive skill at first, and it is just learning my left from my right and having it internalized. I'll never forget a little girl, I think her name was Anna. She was about 12 years old, and I said, "Anna, how you doing with that, with your left and right?" She was the neatest kid. She had a lot of ADHD, and we were working on her focusing, and she said, "Oh," she says, "terrible." She says, "And they told me to do this." She says, "What's that all about? I don't even understand how that works." Cracked me up. So her teachers had tried to tell her that if you put your two fingers up, that this represents the L for left. But if you don't know which direction the L goes, that doesn't help you at all. And so she was so honest about that. So I did an exercise with her, and she said it worked. We held our right hand in the air and we went like this, and we said right, 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 right. And we did it for probably 3 or 4 minutes, just saying right, 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 right. And when your arm is way up in the air and you're exercising your full arm muscles and saying the word right over and over, that goes into your muscle memory, and you will not forget that is your right hand, because it'll take a week for all your muscles to recover. It took several days for my muscles. Every time I lifted my arm, my muscles hurt from doing that with her. And all summer she came back and said, "I still know my right hand. It got internalized for her." So that little exercise might help someone, yourself or someone in your family. And then don't hesitate to keep a road atlas in your car and at home. When you're working with kids and you're going to do a road trip, get the maps out so that your children can see where you're going and where this place is in relationship to you. So not only do we have left and right, but of course we have that crazy east, west, north, south. I don't know, maybe you're a person that you always know what direction's north or east or west. I still don't, okay? But I like figuring it out. I still like thinking, what way am I going right now? And if I work at it, I can figure out, oh, I'm going east. So if I'm going east, to my left is north and to my right is south. That's a big deal for someone like me who has struggled with this sense of space her whole life. So if you're mediating someone for this cognitive function, you want to ask questions about space. Like, close your eyes right now. Imagine you're in your bedroom and you're facing the door. What would be to your left? Or let's pretend we're at the beach house if you go to some place on vacation. What would be to your right, your left? Get children to imagine where they are in another location and figure out what's in front of them, behind them, to the left or the right of them. The Feuerstein program has a very specific tool called Orientation in Space 1. There's an Orientation in Space 2. The first one works with left, right, front, and back. The second one adds the north, south, east, and west. And then there's an orientation in space basic that works with prepositions, the difference between behind, under, beside, next to, above, below. Young children need to learn those spatial words so that when adults use them, they know what they're talking about. So the Feuerstein program has very specific tools to help mediate these very concepts. But you can build these at home on your own and with your children. So some other questions that you can ask is how much space will that need? So I don't know, have you ever had leftovers at the end of dinner and you're trying to figure out which container to put them in? And you grab the wrong container and you don't have enough space. And so you're like, gotta dump it out, find a bigger one, wash that one. Or you put it in and you have all this ridiculous space left over. All right. So all of that is spatial awareness, is volume of how much space something takes up. Help your kids with organizing space. Have them participate when the family decides it's time to organize the garage, for example. See if your kiddos can come up with ideas of where to put things and how to organize things. Organizing space has to be one of the most challenging. I mean, there's people that make whole careers out of this, organizing space. So I know when I became a school principal, oh man, I had to figure out how to organize my office and then an entire school and where we're going to store things and where we're going to move things. So a lot of work with asking good questions of yourself or someone who you're working with to help them understand how to use space and visualize it in their mind. So you could ask questions like, all right, when we get to the mall, we want to get to name the store. What direction do you think we're going to go? Our big mall here in Fort Wayne, Indiana is called Glenbrook. And I don't go there very often, maybe once a year. So I do not know this mall. And I remember I was there. I was specific looking for one store. This was, I think, right before Christmas. And I went up to the mammoth map. And I kid you not, I stood there and stared at that thing for the longest time. You know, the X, you are here. But I still wasn't sure which way to turn to get to where I needed to go. So I really had to work hard at that. Where my husband can look at that and within about 5 seconds, he knows exactly where to go. Me, it takes 2 or 3 minutes of studying. So those kind of maps and those kind of experiences are really valuable for teenagers that you're working with or children or yourself, because you don't want to get lost anywhere. You want to know where you are. All right. So that sensing space, it's a really, really good cognitive skill to work on. Reuven Feuerstein identified it as one of the input thinking skills, getting information into our brain so we can use it, and having a sense of space is certainly important to learning many different academic subjects. For instance, math is very foundational for this one. They have found a really good correlation between spatial sense and being able to do math. So it's important. It's an important one to build for not only getting lost, but for doing long division. Okay. All right, my friends. So there you go. There's episode number 13. Please write a review. I hope a positive one. Please put 5 stars on. Not that I need your stars. Okay. It's not about my ego needs it, but the podcast needs it so that we can help spread the good news. And I really appreciate all of my friends out there that are following Build a Brain. In a few months, there's going to be a book to go along with this. So that will be available someday. I'm working on it. So that's all for me, and we'll see you on episode 14. Remember, build your brain block by block, thought by thought.
Thanks for listening to the Build a Brain podcast. If you're wanting more information on how to build a brain, please visit the website for the MindCAP Center in Fort Wayne, Indiana at www.mindcap.org. That's www.mindcap.org. Children and adults from across the United States and Canada have found the cognitive help they needed at the MindCAP Center. Their specialized team is trained in all levels of the Feuerstein program and can literally help you or your child build a new brain. We'll see you next time.